I have 100 days to beat Ark Scorched Earth Ascended, but that would be too easy. So I put my harvesting rate on 0 times. Meaning if I try to mine, harvest, or gather materials, I get absolutely no resources. I can't mine trees or rocks, I can't pick berries, and when I get desperate, I can't even harvest my own dead body for meat. My goal is to try and get some wyverns and then take down Greg. This might be impossible. On day 1, I woke up in a desert. It's kind of hot in here. I had a dream of being the best farmer in the West, but no matter how hard I punched this cactus or how firmly I grabbed this thorn bush, my inventory was still empty. It's kind of like that meme that says, it's not much, but without the honest work. Anyways, my first goal was to, not die, and hopefully find some supply drops to get a weapon to defend myself. So I decided to start searching around the obelisk area because for now I can use the obelisk as a storage box in case I die. But unfortunately, before I made it to the obelisk, I got deleted by a wild degenerate. Help. The end. I'm just kidding, I respawned, unfortunately. And I eventually managed to find my first supply drop over by this cactus. But it was like stuck halfway through the floor. Excuse me. And then it disintegrated. What? Yeah, I died again. When I respawned, I looked at this random Jerboa and bro said, brrr. And that means there's a storm brewing. So I got kind of scared. This map is brutal, man. Like, the supply drops are better, but besides that, it's a lot worse than Ark Evolved. Anyway, I finally made it to an explorer note to level up, and then I found a supply drop with some spears, so I actually might be able to defend myself. Things were looking suspiciously good, but then a heat wave struck. Man's prophecy has come to life. So I tried to use the water to stay cool, but it didn't last very long, and I got evaporated by the sun. Yeah, it's just not survivable. I decided to wait out the storm in the afterlife. So now the day was almost over, but so was the storm. Yeah, it's still pretty hot. But I did manage to finally survive by cooling down in the water, and thanks to a very generous saber-tooth, I have a slingshot to defend myself. Oh, let's go. And when the heat calmed down a bit, I managed to finally stop imitating a fish, but this run was starting to get pretty difficult, and I really needed to come up with a plan. But let me tell you about something that's much easier than that. Entering to win a free gaming console. Are you intrigued? Raid Shadow Legends. A turn-based mobile game with a big focus on strategy, which in my opinion is the best part of the game because with 800 different champions, there are endless combinations to outsmart your opponents. Raid's currently celebrating the arrival of spring in Teleria with a special Spring Hunt minigame event starting from April 15th to May 30th. All you have to do to enter is download Raid using the link in the description or the QR code on screen, head to springhunt.plarium.com, enter your Raid ID, and start searching for some of those missing items. If you find the right ones, you could win some real-life prizes, including a gaming console or Amazon gift cards worth a total of $10,000. There's also some in-game prizes like legendary champions and skill tomes. And if that wasn't enough, Raid also has a Community Week event going on at the same time. There's a bunch of in-game activities going on for all players, and a 14-day loyalty program where all you have to do is log in on 7 different days before July to get a free legendary Adeline. She can put enemies to sleep without even hitting them. Kind of like my physics professor. And if you use the link in the description or the QR code on screen right now, you're gonna get a huge starter pack with 2 epic champions for completely free. First, you'll get Tyrell, who some players consider to be the best epic in the entire game. And when you hit level 25, you'll get Rector Drath, a super strong support to heal and revive your team. After you download with my link, make sure to use the promo code SPRINGHUNT24 to get some silver and other free stuff. I'll see you guys in game, and a big thank you to Raid for sponsoring today's video. I don't have a reliable method of getting meat since I can't harvest anything, but I can loot berries from killing wild dinos. So herbivores seem like the best option, but the only weapon I have right now is some very small arms I need to find a weapon very soon, and the only way I could think of is by looting supply drops. I just have to be smart about it and try to not die every time. So I brutally incapacitated this Jerboa so he could help warn me of sandstorms by saying brrr. And together we set out to find some free handouts from the sky. Well, that went well. Luckily, nightfall was approaching though, and without the brutal heat, I actually did manage to make it to the green obelisk. Not only is there water here, but I can also use the terminal as a storage box for my supply drop loot. That way, if I die, I can come back later and get it. Anyways, I eventually made it to a blue drop. Requires survivor level 30 to open. What? I thought blue was level 25. But then I spotted something in the distance. This is the first time I've ever seen someone with smaller arms than me. Anyways, clearly I needed to level up a bit, but I don't know any note runs on this map since I usually do them on the island. So I kind of just spawned around different areas where I think that there's some notes. Whoa. Yeah, it didn't exactly go how I had planned. Really? We just had a heat wave like 10 minutes ago. Well, somehow I survived that, and I managed to find an explorer note and a mastercraft Phiomia saddle from this white drop. But before I could even start my Phiomia breeding line, this happened. Where did you even come from? Good times. After grabbing another explorer note and getting some fur armor so I can incubate myself during heat waves, I witnessed this Carno beefing with an Yankee right in front of his child. I was really rooting for the Yankee because I wanted to take custody over the Carno's poor little baby. But unfortunately, the Carno seems to have a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and the Yankee seems to be indisposed at the moment. This entire time, I was still trying to get back to the obelisk, by the way, but between the local sociopaths, this game literally crashing multiple times. Oh my. I couldn't do anything, but I wasn't ready to give up just yet. Alright, I finally have some pretty good stuff to get started. So, the stuff that was on my body is way too valuable for me to just let it despawn, but World War III is going on over there, and I don't know what to do. Excuse me? This map is insane. Easy zone, by the way. But then I spawned next to a purple drop, and this was the exact moment where things started to seem possible. I got a harpoon launcher with 40 spear bolts. I have a legitimate weapon now. I have to get this thing to a storage box. Like how? I did actually manage to get it back, but not for very long. My original body has a mortar and pestle in it, which I can use to store the harpoon launcher, but I can't find it anywhere. And to make matters worse, well, Mr. Sandstorm is here. Really, bro? That's like 3 in 3 days. I just couldn't catch a break on this map, man. And since you can't level movement speed in this game, there's basically a 0% chance of survival if literally anything glances in my direction. But after experiencing death for the 83rd time, I finally got my harpoon launcher back. The other stuff is long gone by now, I would assume. But it is nighttime, and it's not hot, so I started safely making my way up the river. All was going pretty well, but then something very unexpected happened. Let's see if you guys can guess what it was, you know, just using your context clues. Was it A, I found a bed and I set up a magnificent base? Was it B, Vin Diesel spawned in next to me and adopted me into his family? Or was it C, Mr. Sandstorm? I only died once on my way back to my body though, and I got 19 sand from that as well. So now I can build, well, I don't know, a sandcastle or something. Nice. Anyway, I started making my way to the red obelisk to hopefully get my harpoon launcher to safety. and I almost got removed from the premises by this Carno, but by some miracle, I managed to limp away with a broken leg. I honestly should not be alive right now, but everything was now safely deposited into my retirement account. And at this point, I'm just standing here, naked and starving, with no food and a broken leg. All I need now is a bed so I can actually spawn near the obelisk, so I kept exploring for supply drops. And eventually, I found some ghillie in this purple drop, and in Ark, ghillie keeps you cool. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either, just go with it. I almost had the ghillie to the red obelisk, but I was being followed by a miscreant. This is gonna be close. Dude, are you actually serious right now? So, I decided to finally turn off frame generation, which actually does prevent the game from crashing, but it doesn't prevent giant boulders from giving me a concussion. It is kind of annoying that I have to play without frame gen though, because now I get like 80 FPS instead of 160. I thought that this would be fixed by now considering the DLC's out, but you know. Anyway, I found a yellow drop, but I'm literally one level too low. And then for some reason, all of the drops just like stop spawning. I spawned like 8 times in a bunch of different spots, and there were none anywhere near me. But eventually they started spawning again, and I spent the rest of day 4 just looting drops and dying repeatedly. Oh yeah, did I mention there was also another sandstorm? On day 5, I died a lot. I found a few drops though, and I've officially died 60 times in 5 days. Kind of impressive, not gonna lie. It's definitely getting kind of repetitive though, so we don't need to show all of that, but I did manage to get some pretty decent items to the green obelisk. I still don't have a bed though. Where is Pro going?
You're a wizard, Harry.
And then I ended off day 5 by grabbing a pretty decent green drop and then immediately being eviscerated by my mortal enemy. Yeah, on day 6, I kind of gave up on getting that stuff back, but I found a few new drops and I got some handcuffs and a grenade, which is clearly what I was looking for. I'll skip ahead a bit though, because it's literally just Juztify versus everybody, and it's kind of repetitive.
Is there no one else?
So yeah, the whole day was basically just me role-playing as a prehistoric microwavable pizza while being trolled by heat waves and sandstorms. Nighttime is always an opportunity to survive though, and this time was different from the last 5 days. I managed to find some desert cloth pants, which is a pretty sizable profit if I do say so myself, but I also found a pre-made ballista turret. These things cost an insane amount of resources to craft, meaning if I demolish it, I'm gonna be the second richest person in the world. I perished. Luckily, I was able to get back to the obelisk after a couple tries, and the raptors were all on vacation. So now I have everything in the obelisk, including a ballista turret. It's time to make a base. So I unlocked some things inside my brain, and I set up some of the wooden structures that I already had. I placed down and demolished the ballista turret, and then I realized I actually have everything that I need to craft a smithy. Nice. Wait. I needed that hide for a bed. After finishing a very impressive base, I realized that I had this flag. Ooh, that might actually give me enough hide for a bed. So yeah, the flag gave me exactly what I needed, but I was out of thatch. It's actually insane to be bottlenecked by the literal most accessible resource in the entire game. So I'm gonna have to find some more structures for the thatch. But while I was here, I did want to test out all the new skins that they added with the Bob's Tall Tales DLC. It pretty much only requires wood, which ironically I have plenty of. They actually look pretty cool. There's like a jail and some saloon doors and a window pane. You want to get in, buddy? Dude, that actually looks really good. There's also these outlaw cowboy skins, and I'm definitely going to be using those. But unfortunately, it takes hide, and, well, it also takes clothes. And right now, I'm kind of naked. And there's massive trains. But, like... Well, I'm excited for the cowboy skin. So yeah, after that, I headed back to the Red Ob and I uploaded the harpoon launcher and everything else that I was storing over there. And I spent the rest of day 7 complaining about sandstorms and getting physically, mentally, spiritually, and theoretically assaulted by various degrees of degeneracy. On day 8, I hit the massive milestone of 100 deaths, and I didn't really do much else. I couldn't find any thatch for a bed. But then after searching for like an hour, I got another ballista turret. I did also have this forge, and I don't think I'll ever have raw metal. So I went to place it so I could demolish it, and I placed it not on a foundation. That's not possible. But after breaking the fabric of reality, I demolished the new ballista turret and finally had enough hide to make a bed. It only took like 9 days. Wait, you can make coffins and use them as beds? So after all that pain, I now have desert cloth pants and gloves, a harpoon launcher with 78 spear shots, which is kind of huge, and a crossbow with 33 tranks. So I made some cloth armor to fill in the cowboy aesthetic, and my goal now is to delete some thugs to loot berries and use them to tame something with my tranks. Is this considered overkill? I don't think that I can breed carnivores because meat is basically impossible for me to get outside of the little amounts from supply drops. On my way home, I tried to have a duel with this thorny dragon, and I kind of realized why nobody uses harpoon launchers. And then when I made it back to base, I found some direwolves trying to take over the tri-state area. So this time I was kind of forced to get closer, but it was a good chance to test if the harpoon launcher can actually take these guys out.
Why are you running?
This man has got 12 spears protruding from his spine. He gave me no loot. The launcher is already like 30% broken now. But while I was trying to brainstorm some better options, this random thorny dragon just started assaulting my wooden foundation. Why? But this time, I actually got my shot off while we were underwater. And yeah, the harpoon launcher, I mean, it's amazing under the water. So that's definitely something useful to consider, you know, considering I'm in a desert. Bro, can y'all chill out already? I didn't actually mean to knock that dude out, but I do have a bit of meat, so I decided to tame him. I can almost guarantee that you're gonna starve to death, buddy. So at this point, it was day 10, and it seems like the waves of murderous psychopaths have chilled out a bit. So I spent my entire life savings on 2 small crop plots and a water intake. It's kind of insane how thatch is literally my limiting resource. I demolished a storage box to try and get some more thatch for a foundation, but apparently I can't count and I still don't have enough. I actually have like a lifetime supply of metal and cementing paste, so I just made 2 metal foundations instead. Well, that's one way to place a water tap. So I moved all my perishables into my brand new preserving bin. And then I fertilized my crops. I'm definitely gonna need some tames to keep up the fert on these berries, but for now this should work. I also realized that I don't have the resources for spark powder, so this entire preserving bin was basically just a waste of the only thatch and fiber that I had. These vessels can store preserving salts, and I do actually have some from a drop. So in true American fashion, I can just put a bunch of salt on everything, and now the food gets preserved. See, this cooked meat spoils in 13 minutes, but whenever I place some salt on the shelf next to it, the meat gets super motivated, and now it has 26 minutes before spoiling. I can also carry some on me to preserve food too, and it's actually a really cool mechanic that I haven't used much. Alright, so I just talked about salt for like 45 seconds, but anyway, I headed back out. I still need to get some tames because Chance the Raptor is not really that great, and I also don't have any hide to make him a saddle. But there was a heat wave going on, and it definitely wasn't the smartest time for me to be leaving my base. I didn't make it back before getting evaporated. You know, I don't feed the guy, so honestly, that's kind of valid. I wasn't really that far away though, so I did try to run back, but this random terror wizard rose from the floor and tried to decapitate me. I started comboing up on that man, and I think I almost knocked him out, but I inevitably perished. While I was waiting on the bed to respawn, I found a metal shield and a yellow drop, and I wasn't exactly able to get it back to my base, but bro, these things are insane. I I never really used them because movement speed used to be a thing, but I think I need to get myself a shield. So now that I had everything back, I decided to make a bola to make taming a bit easier. I wanted to make like 5, but they cost 10 thatch each. Some of us are struggling out here. Can't even escape inflation in a dinosaur video game. Anyways, I found my body with that shield and some pistol ammo on it, which was huge because I actually did have a fabricated pistol. I just don't have the thatch. But then a dire wolf followed me back to base and I didn't notice. Chance the Raptor put up a great fight, but the dire wolf was just too powerful. So I decided to recruit him to my cult. He seemed more interested in swimming than joining my tribe, maybe because it doesn't possess food. But I did manage to eventually tame the guy, and I named him Arnold. Direwolves actually don't need saddles, so now that I had my first real mount, me and Arnold set out to take on the West. I hate this map. Why are there 847 terror beasts? Well, that happened. So it took me a couple tries.
Why though? Alright, bro. I get it. You want to kill me.
But eventually, I got my stuff back, like 12 hours later. And when I made it back, the Terror Beast sent one of their members to raid my magnificent base. So on behalf of Arnold and Chase the Raptor, I repeatedly shot him with some narcotic-laced arrows, and he decided to run into the water to take a nap. He definitely should be drowning right now, but somehow he's just, you know, chilling under the water. Bro's aquatic, that's crazy. So I got kind of distracted. Yeah, he woke up. I evaluated all of the saddles that I had, and to be honest, the only viable one at this point was for a saber-tooth. But I have no bolas and no meat, so I need to find some more drops if I want to tame one of those. My water skin is actually allowing me to sprint, so it was a bit easier, and I did find a desert cloth helmet. Of course, I switched my cowboy hat skin to that immediately. But on the way home, after getting yeeted on by this moth, I became a McTerror sandwich. So I got a spyglass and another water skin, some adobe walls, and a really good thorny dragon saddle. So I think that's what I'm gonna go for actually, because I can knock them out pretty safely and the saddle is kind of insane. So I replaced some walls with the new adobe ones. My house is slowly becoming less of an air fryer. And I headed back into the desert heat in search of a thorny dragon. I found a level 30 right across from my base, which is, it's not optimal, but I went ahead and knocked him out. And after going on a detour to steal some crystal from the screen drop, I scouted the area, taking note of all the different ways I might die today. Oh, level 85. Dododex says this guy would take 18 tranks or 7 to the head. That's pretty easy actually, and I have more than enough. I actually managed to get him stuck, but then he blinked at me and then gained the ability to turn around. At this point, the level 30 was finished, and a very generous Sabertooth had volunteered for testing. He definitely could improve in the mobility department, alright, but he's a lot stronger than I expected, to be honest. So I decided to level some health on him, but then I realized he actually has to eat to heal up. Yeah, I didn't think this through. Meanwhile, the level 85 is taking a really long time, and it doesn't help that I have to use cooked meat because I ran out of raw. And while I was waiting, the level 30 almost died to a low level Thyla, so yeah, these things are decent, but I still need to be very careful, especially because of how slow they are. Anyways, the level 85 finished a few minutes later, and I gave him an appropriate name. And after grabbing a flag from this white drop, one of the like 3 structures that will actually give me hide, I started heading back to base, but it took 3 years because Scorched Earth never misses its daily routine. Oh, this might take a while. And when the sandstorm reluctantly ended, it was time for me to get my revenge on this world. So I can't get meat from these kills, which is why these thorny dragons they're definitely gonna starve to death, but please don't tell them that. But I am looting a lot of berries from killing carnivores, and this is really gonna help me to tame some solid herbivores. I just want to point out that there have been 2 sandstorms today, like 10 minutes apart. Anyways, I made it back home at the end of day 12, and the baby Carno passed away, unfortunately. But the baby terror bird is still kicking. Well, barely. I decided to give him the privilege of borrowing the last of my meat. Hopefully that'll last him until he's fully grown. And I'm actually kind of loaded in terms of gear now. On day 13, I spent some time organizing my base, and I decided to name my terror bird... What I was saying before I got interrupted by the Civil War was that I decided to name my terror bird Steve. And when I headed back out, I slayed Steve's cousin, and he dropped a treasure map. Like, that's actually so cool. Bro had the knowledge. The treasure is like 3 light years to the west, but I'm definitely gonna go for it. I just need to craft a shovel. There were a bunch of red drops in the distance, so my goal was to pick up some of those on the way there. But about halfway into my expedition, they all despawned. NyQuil is now starving to death, and I am dying from heat stroke. Good times. Luckily, I made it to the valley, and it's not as hot here. I was making my way towards the buried treasure, and I met this little Jerboa fella, who informed me of... So after recruiting this weatherman,
Wouldn't you like to know, weather boy?
I actually made it to the dig site, and I channeled my inner pirate. That BP is insane. I'm never going to afford it, but it do be insane. The weather had started rolling in at this point, but luckily it was just an electric storm, and we were able to head back home. When we made it back home, NyQuil was looking a bit malnourished, and he's already exceeded his rations for this year. But I decided to break my code of ethics, and I fed him the last of my cooked meat. Anyways, I powered my new narco berry plant with some very organic material, and then Fox News got eviscerated by a Thyla. But after I did some home renovations, it was time to decide what creature was going to fight Greg by going through mass breeding. I'm definitely considering getting a wyvern, but they would probably starve quickly after raising, so it wouldn't really be for the boss. But in terms of herbivores, there's really not many on Scorched Earth. Like, look at the list. 90% of these dudes are absolute psychopaths that would love to murder me. I know Kentros can work. I kind of proved that in my no killing video, and I've also used Ankies. And obviously, Megatheriums are omnivores. We all know they're pretty OP. But I want to do something different that hasn't been done before. I do have something in mind, and I'm not sure if they're strong enough, especially without saddles since I have no hide. And I'm gonna tell you guys about my choice very soon when I'm ready to tame one. But for now, we're gonna get some transportation, either a Procoptodon or Limantry. And hopefully we'll get one before NyQuil enters the Shadow Realm via starving. So after grabbing an exorbitant amount of supply drops for the majority of day 14, I was able to demolish some structures for that. I spent about half of day 15 looking for supply drops because literally everyone is starving. And despite some sand related technical difficulties, I was able to give everyone their ration of 23 calories for the month. And I ended off the day by getting materials from demolishing a very horrendous structure that I built. I'm pretty good on thatch now, so I was able to craft some bullets for taming, but I still have no hide. Also, NyQuil is probably gonna die, like, very soon, but that's a sacrifice that I am humbly willing to make. Anyways, from this point on, I'm still going to be looting supply drops for like 50% of my recording, but I'm not really going to show them anymore unless it's something important because I know this is getting repetitive. And speaking of important, I finally found some rare flowers in one of the drops, so now I can tame a Procoptodon. When I made it back to base, I wanted to make a saddle to prepare for my new Procoptodon. Oh, okay. I managed to scrap together a very diverse trap using mostly pre-made structures, and then I made some narcotics and I saddled up the low-level thorny dragon because NyQuil has reached the 4th quarter and there's not enough beef jerky for the both of us. But right after I left my mansion, I found a saddle for Steve, so I decided to go back and I was gonna take him instead since he's faster. Steve isn't very strong. I spent like 10 minutes leveling Steve's weight and trying to reduce the load, but bro is locked in right now. Meanwhile, NyQuil has 50 health left, and then the stars aligned as a storm rolled in. And so I thanked him for his service with a firm salute. as NyQuil transcended from the Ark.
Please, sir. I want some more.
Goodbye, my friend. You did good. Anyway, Steve still sucks. The trap is extremely heavy, but I also realized that I've just been casually carrying around this 45-pound shield. So I just dropped that, and we set out to tame a Procoptodon. After exterminating a micro nuisance, we found a level 15 moth, which is pretty terrible. But I decided to tame him because Steve's about to be dead from starvation soon. And after my Cinnamoth finished, we set up the most scuffed trap of all time next to 2 Procoptodons and a cute little baby. I ate some rare flowers, which made them very angry, and after several minutes of very highly skilled gameplay, I finally trapped this guy, and I also trapped myself. Bro, what is going on right now? Steve, why was that man beefing with you like that? So now I have my first good herbivore knocked with his child just standing here traumatized. Okay, so they don't eat rare flowers. I'm not sure why I thought they did, but I've had rare mushrooms since like day 5, so I could have done this 10 days ago. On the way back to my humble abode, I became one with the sun. And then I distributed the herbivores their rations. Steve got a firm handshake instead. Is this a Oh, this is what you use to revive with the Oasis Sword. So I found NyQuil's essence, and I might be able to revive him using the new Oasis Sword. But I am on 0 times. Okay, you gotta remember that, so don't get your expectations too high. I'm gonna try. I still don't even have a saddle to ride Optimus Prime, and Steve's about to die from protein deficiency. But luckily, I did find enough fish meat in a drop for both Steve and NyQuil's cousin to make it through the night. And at the end of day 17, while I was waiting on yet another sandstorm, a wandering merchant and his wandering son stumbled upon my penthouse. What I meant to say was that there was a poor orphan and nobody to take care of him. So I humbly took him in as my own. Anyways, it's day 18. There's still a heat wave going on, and Fox News is already forecasting a brrr. But Steve and I already had plans to search every corner of the desert today, and we weren't going to come back home until I had some structures that would give me hide for the Procoptodon salad. So that was over 2 days of searching, and my luck has been pretty bad. But I did find some war drums, and I can't just demolish a perfectly good set of war drums without at least trying them out. So I decided to serenade Steve, which seemed to invoke the hatred of Steve's cousin who tried to pillage my home office. Luckily, we won, and I played us a victory song.
Victory screech!
Well, that was fun. I have 75 hide now. At this point, the orphaned racer had become a full-grown man, so I put a stainless steel platform on his back. I actually do have enough hide for Cinnamoth's saddle, but I'm not sure if I want to save up 500 for Optimus Primes instead, but I wasn't having much luck with hide from drops. And when I made it back to base, there was a galley just pretending to be stuck. Bro was just willingly letting me incapacitate him. He was only level 15, but I have a really good galley saddle, and these guys are one of the fastest land creatures in the entire game. I don't need to worry about transportation anymore, but I'm definitely not fighting anything with this fine gentleman, so I still need hide for a Procoptodon saddle. Yo! Help, Steve! No, Steve's too fat. I almost lost the galley right there, but I did manage to claim that neglectful direwolf's mutated child. And I got a little bit of hide from a bunk bed while I was out. Oh yeah, also, a Daedon murdered Steve in broad daylight, and I had the recording paused, so yeah. It's all good though, because he was gonna starve in a few hours anyway. I was still going pretty heavy on drops for hide at this point, and some highlights were a flamethrower and some propellant for ammo from this red drop. And there was also a pretty solid yellow drop with a canteen and some flag. And then I died. But now day 23 was coming to an end, so I demolished some more structures for hide. I still need 220 more. I really don't want to be grabbing drops for like 40 more days, bro. So yeah, this was the moment where I hit my breaking point. I'm no longer making a Procoptodon saddle. Maybe later if I happen to find some hide, but I had a pretty good plan. I was gonna try the cave on foot. What could go wrong? So I gathered all my weapons and I took some inventory of what I had to work with. Apparently flamethrower ammo can only be crafted at a chem bench, and that was like 50% of my plan. So I will admit it ain't looking good. My plants also died because my tames won't fertilize when I don't feed them. I think I can still do the caves though, but I'm gonna bring this green direwolf with me for some emotional support. I named him the Grinch because if you look really, really closely, he kind of has like the smallest little hint of green. Can you see it? So now that everything was ready, I spent the last of my silk to repair my armor, and I set out to find the artifact of the gatekeeper. I don't know where this cave is. So after doing some extensive research, I reached the entrance to the cave. And the Grinch must have ate a little too much roast beef last Christmas because bro was too wide to fit. I tried to do some parkour using this rock to jump over the wall. It would have been pretty sick, alright? I actually almost pulled that off, but I ended up having to go around and doing it the boring way. And on day 25, after eliminating a few miscreants, we made it to the cave, and the Grinch's stomach was grumbling. I decided to give him the last of my meat, but this might be the last time food ever enters his mouth. I hope you enjoy it, buddy. So my Grinch and I made our way through the cave, and it seems that nobody's home. Maybe they're throwing a surprise birthday party for the Grinch. We found a scorpion around the halfway mark, and in the central area, there were a bunch of giant desert centipedes just waiting to disintegrate my clothes. I managed to snipe and kite these two off the ledge, but then this happened. Yeah, I would have been fine if I dismounted, but like, he touched the side on the way down. Anyways, I grabbed the artifact because all the oversized centipedes were sitting in the abyss. And I headed out. Oh! Alright, we're good, we're good. Oh, bro! Okay. I have some issues when it comes to jumping over gaps. And on the way out, the surprise birthday party had commenced. Basically, everything spawned behind me after I made it through, and now I'm getting assaulted by hash-slinging slashers while the Grinch is at his weakest point. When you're low health in this game, the stamina regen is really bad. But I took it slow, and I eventually made it out the cave. And on the way home, I had to feed my Grinch a little bit of my beef jerky just to, you know, keep him going. And when we arrived, he was starving again with 87 health. Good times. So I quickly scrambled to take Roadrunner out. We needed to find some meat ASAP. Nice. Just kidding, he perished from lack of beef jerky, which traumatized Roadrunner. Look man, I'm sorry, okay, but it's literally easier to tame a new Grinch than it is to try to feed this one. Anyways, I was checking the materials for cryopods, and I realized that I actually do have everything to make some. I don't have very much crystal or hide, but I was able to get the materials together to craft 2 cryopods. And I ended out the day by reorganizing a bit and putting up all of the weapons for later. On day 26, I decided to spend my remaining hide on Cinnamoth's saddle, and now I have no hide or fiber. I would love to use Optimus Prime, but grinding drops all day would make this video very, very boring. Maybe I'll find a saddle and a drop later though. Anyways, I put Roadrunner in a Pal Sphere. And me and Cinnamoth headed out to tame the new breeders, to fight Greg. And then I sat here for a few minutes waiting on this yellow drop to come down. But then I realized that it's been down the entire time. It's just under the floor. Okay, so I'm about to reveal the tame that we're going to use for this challenge. And some of you may have guessed it, but it's an herbivore and it's very appropriate for Scorched Earth. If you haven't guessed it yet, you can leave your guess in the comments. We'll see if you're right.
Scutinphora putus is a fast-flying...
Okay, thanks for telling me about that.
Rockwell, old bean, you've done it again.
I found a 150 Morellatops. Yeah, I'm using the Camelsaurus. But there was like 27 degenerates all committing gang violence against that man, and there was nothing I could do but watch as a bystander. I've got to find another one. But then a microraptor took flight and dismounted me mid-air. Oh no. I almost deceased. But luckily I have 510 health because that allows you to survive any fall. Granty taught me that. I used to pump movement speed like a menace in Ark Evolved, but I can't do that anymore. Anyways, I found a drop with 2 more bunk beds, which is huge for hide. And then I found this red drop. Like, dude, just look at this. What? Bro, there's a whole industrial forge in here. And a Mastercraft Uni saddle. That is ridiculous. I'm overweight. On the way home, I got assaulted by waves of jealous microraptors. They must have known that I had that 50-pound industrial forge in my back pocket. And when I made it back to base, a reincarnation of Steve deleted Baby Hop. I can't fit all this loot. I normally would just make another storage box, but since I can't farm, I'm kind of trying to save my fiber. Anyways, now it's time to find a Morellatops. Dododex says that it'll take 15 trank arrows. These guys aren't normally aggressive, they usually just run away, but since he's a baby, he was super motivated to remove my existence. I used this cactus as a barrier and just ran in circles. And I accidentally shot the dude again after he got knocked. Yeah, he's at 90% effectiveness now. But at least I'll be able to claim his child that he's currently sitting on top of right now, parent of the year. So I was just chilling, waiting on my tame. The taming effectiveness was down to 60% at this point. So I knocked out the Microraptor and I beat him to death. Get away from me, bro. So when he finished, the stats were a bit scuffed as expected, but honestly it was still pretty decent. Unfortunately, claiming the 130 baby isn't great because he stays 130. He doesn't get the taming effectiveness levels. Really? Again? So after deleting another weirdo, I tried cryopotting these guys, but my game was glitched. It just wouldn't work. Well, that's what I thought. Apparently the electric storm disables cryopods. I haven't really played Scorched Earth since before cryopods existed, so I didn't know that was a thing, but that's interesting, I guess. On the way home, a Pego literally kidnapped Roadrunner. And then a sandstorm immediately began. I made it back, you know, slowly. I was looking around my horribly organized penthouse to see if I had a Morellatops saddle. I couldn't find one. And then another Pego tried to hold Roadrunner for ransom again. These dudes have an obsession. I set out to find a good male Morellatops. It didn't take long before I came across a 135, but it was a female. I already have a female, but because of my mortal enemy, this one probably has better stats. But as soon as I started trying to knock this guy out, I got assaulted by the entire Morellatops population. And then an uninvited heatwave showed up. I'm not trying to die today, so I headed back home. I found a level 50 at my base, so I tried to tame him, but he got eaten by a pig. So yeah, I basically just waited on the heat wave to end, and I made him a Morellatops saddle in the meantime. I went back to that 135 that I found earlier, and Donald cleared out his own species, and then helped me to knock the 135 by invading his personal space. And after chasing the dude across like 4 countries, I convinced him to take a nap, and I managed to get 96% effectiveness. His name is Mozzarellatops. The stats are much higher, but still better than Donald Hump, so I could use him for caves and different stuff like that for now. By the way, I know I've said this before, but I'm getting 2 sandstorms a day sometimes, and I doubt Wildcard is watching this video, but if you are, bro, please reduce the frequency. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anyways, I spent the rest of day 30 looking for a male Morellatops because Donald Hump is a female. And it only took like 20 minutes, but I found a 135 male and then got stuck on this leaf. The reason he's running like a coward instead of assaulting me like Mozzarellatops did is because they only have confidence when friends are around. But he wanted to run so bad that he decided to run into a Thyla and became a breakfast burrito. I stepped in to try to save him, and I did, but Donald Hump has the mobility of an 80-year-old tree. Yeah, I couldn't turn at all. I did manage to knock him out on foot, but just know, there's like a 10-minute clip of me chasing a prehistoric camel and missing 90% of my shots. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I'm actually surprised he didn't run into any carnivores with all that running, but he's down now. I had to go back to base to grab my last 18 berries and then sent him off, ate them all. This guy is the reason that I only had 18 to begin with, and now I'm at absolute 0.
Bro, what is that?
Oh, apparently that's supposed to be a racer, okay. So I spawned mozzarella tops to extort some berries from the locals, but then when I put the berries into tame, he wouldn't eat them. I actually sat here for about 10 minutes just staring at him, and bro was on a hunger strike. I didn't really know what was happening because I've never seen this before. I thought maybe it was just a glitch. So I spent my entire life savings to make some wood structures and build a wall, you know, in memory of Donald Hump. My plan was to just let him wake up and then immediately disrupt his circadian rhythm again. No! I rushed over with a 3-second response time, and I got my revenge for Roadrunner. But it didn't matter because he's gone now. If I find an Oasisaur, I'm gonna try my best to bring back Roadrunner over everything else. I don't know if I can, but he was the real MVP of getting me started in this run, and I owe him to try. That is one massive salmon. So I had to wait a bit because of a sandstorm, but when I headed back over, he was gone. This little hyena somehow ate 200,000 calories in one meal. I decided that it would be better to just tame a low-level one and breed the stats onto a baby. But this level 45 that I found ended up dying to a saber, and when I went to claim the baby level 45, nothing happened. I'm pressing Y. The game just wasn't working. There's definitely something wrong. So I restarted my game and I found another level 20 male. So after knocking him out and grabbing some berries from my mansion, he was on a hunger strike too. Bro, what is going on? There wasn't even a taming bar, like at all. And everything was fine about an hour ago. So I backed out and I went to check my settings, and apparently disable taming is on. Well, I assume that might, maybe, possibly, perhaps, that could be the reason why I can't tame anything. Man, is it too late to just play Minecraft? Luckily, it saved right after the tame finished, and on day 34, I started breeding some boss Morellatops. I thought they were mammals, but apparently they're dinosaurs. Look pretty hairy to me. But yeah, they lay eggs. But the eggs were just incubating, just sitting on the ground without any air conditioners or anything, so we should still be good. Little guy's bigger than Fox News. Upon further inspection, I realized that this unit was a bit garbage. But then a Thyla tried to invade my country, so I adopted his child. Also, the eggs were now too hot. I think they might only be able to incubate at night. So I decided to try and build a platform, and I used metal because I have an unlimited supply of that, but I have like nothing else. I managed to get enough electronics and crystal for a generator and 2 air conditioners. That's essentially all my resources, but I shouldn't need to make any more advanced structures now anyways. Kind of ironic how I just spent like 400 metal, but I only have 50 fiber. Anyways, I hatched a bunch of eggs, and I got 1 good male and 1 good female, but I barely have anything to feed them. So after disposing of some waste, I headed out to grind some berries from carnivores because my crop plots kind of died because I have no fertilizer, because my tames are starving, so they can't produce fertilizer. It's like the reverse circle of life. So yeah, hopefully we'll make it out the Great Depression. Did I actually just do that? So I may be a little bit of an idiot, but at least I still have the baby female Morellatops. Okay, I can't even be mad at the game because this is my fault in every way possible. But I gotta do something else because I'm about to lose my mind at this point. So I crafted a ton of fire arrows and I loaded up my arsenal. I'm gonna use this level 35 Thyla, which is all I have right now, to hopefully take down the next cave and get the artifact of the Destroyer. Flame arrows are pretty overpowered, so I should be fine. When I arrived, I realized that the entrance wasn't spec'd for giant moths when they built it, but at least they had the courtesy to install an aftermarket moth door on the roof. We made it inside, so I deployed Garfield, and he just now got the name Garfield. And at the start of day 36, we started descending into the cave. There's no going back now. There wasn't anything in the entrance, but I will admit, the caves look really good on this game. As we made it into the first cavern, there were some bugs. I roasted them. Garfield definitely doesn't have enough health to be taking many hits. But in the next area, everything was just stuck inside the wall, so they couldn't hit me anyway. I could hear so many in there. Great game. At the next spot, I started sniping some bugs, and everything was going pretty well. Until the Arthros decided to disintegrate all of my cowboy attire. And instead of being an outlaw, now I'm just naked with tiny arms. Dallas can actually climb vertically though, and I didn't plan for that, but it allowed me to skip like half the cave. The flame arrows are still super overpowered, but Garfield was only at 500 health, and there's some bats ahead. It was getting kind of scary. Luckily, the mantis all flung themselves off a cliff, so I just had to deal with Arthros and bats. Arthros take increased damage from ranged weapons, so it's super easy to kill them with flame arrows. Bats are a bit more difficult though. Also, if you play PvP, flame arrows can destroy plant species X. They're overall just an amazing thing to have. Anyways, I managed to sneak past the remaining bats and I secured the cargo. And on the way out, I just kind of ran past everything, grabbing this blue cave drop right above a bunch of sociopaths that wanted to murder me. I climbed the wall to avoid them, and I headed back to base wearing nothing but gloves, while killing ants with a double-barrel shotgun like a man. I now have 2 out of 3 artifacts to take on Greg, so we just need one last cave, and we have to breed an army of Morellatops. Maybe a UD or Wyvern as well. And I did manage to repair some of my armor, but I can't afford everything right now. Anyways, it was now time to make up for my failures, so I headed out to find a new Morellatops. But while I was out, I got 75 hide from a drop, and then I found a Journeyman Procoptodon saddle. We can use Optimus Prime. My moth is starving, but we did find a 140 Morellatops, so I started shooting. But then a random level 15 one came over to help, and my moth was super low health already from hunger. So I had to run away and cryo Cinemoth so he doesn't die. Oh, I forgot about that. I can't cryo. Here, buddy, eat some mushrooms. Maybe cactus broth? Bullets? Bro, I'll give you anything just to eat. So now I'm stranded and the Morellatops was nowhere to be found. Luckily, I did have a Thyla in my Pokeball, so I used him to knock this level 15. I was all out of berries, but luckily some terror birds donated me just enough to finish the tank. Garfield was starving at this point, but I got some fiber and hide from the structures that I found, and I finally have some silk to repair my desert cloth armor. Anyways, the Morellatops were breeding, and while waiting on that, I gave Optimus Prime the saddle he deserved. Oops. But then they took a quick break because of this direwolf, and another one showed up and murdered my low-level male. Bro, where are these dudes coming from? The first batch only had males with good stats, but I really need to get a bunch of perfect stat females with good health and melee so I can start breeding for mutations. So I hatched like 10 more eggs throughout the day, and I ended up with 2 female breeders, so I decided to stop for now. Once they're raised, I can forge an army of mutated camel dinosaurs. I probably don't have berries for all 5 of them, so I'm prioritizing the females, and that's also why death. Anyways, I ran out of berries, and one of the males died from malnutrition, so I decided to go out and farm some the old-fashioned way. That took longer than expected because Mr. Sandstorm. And while I was gone, one of the females perished because of an empty stomach. I managed to save 2 males and a female, which isn't optimal, but that'll work, I guess. Everyone seems to be good on food right now. So I loaded up some structures, and this might be a bad idea, but I'm gonna go scout the Wyvern Scar. The journey was a bit rough because Optimus Prime kept taking fall damage because his legs are too powerful. But on day 41, we arrived at our destination. It takes forever to get across the map without a flyer. So I set up one of my most impressive bases yet. Wait, that's not a door frame? So I headed down for some scouting with the whole mafia trying to stop me. This is terrifying, to be honest. I've never even attempted to do this without a flyer, but if I can make some grapples or something, this section doesn't have too many wyverns in it. So after taking on a part-time job as an exterminator and finding a metal behemoth gate in this yellow drop, I trekked across the entire map to prepare. On day 42, I had planted another mayhoberry crop for raising morella tops. And after crafting a few grapples with what I had, Greg hired another raptor hitman to delete my morella tops breeders. But we're still standing despite Greg's best efforts, and I contemplated for a while how exactly I'm gonna get this egg. Grapples will get me the egg, but I won't be alive anymore after that. So what do I do if I can't outrun or kill the wyverns? What if I just let them eat me? So I crafted 2 metal 1x1s with a storage box. And I don't know if this is gonna work, but we're about to find out. So after another road trip, I made it to my vacation house. I made some minor repairs, and now it's looking impeccable. I ran out of clay, okay? But then I realized that I forgot to bring a storage box. And I can't just farm one, so I had to jump all the way across the map, make a storage box, and then hop all the way back. That wasted the entire day, and the only productive thing that came from that journey was me finding some meat to feed Garfield. And Optimus Prime is starving now, but he did jump like 3 marathons, so I guess it makes sense. At this point, nightfall had approached, and I put everything up into my storage box. It was now time to execute my plan. I'm scared. I don't know exactly how to go about this, but I decided to try and run over on foot so I can respawn by Optimus Prime. But when I reached the bridge, there was a direwolf and a terror bird blocking my path. Then I almost got stuck on a rock, so I snuck around the side and I spotted a fire egg across the ravine. Oh, I should have brought parachutes. I eventually made it up there though, but I couldn't see the nest in orbit cam, so I wasn't exactly sure where it was or if I was in the right spot. I'm gonna go for this now.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Well, that probably went as bad as physically possible. I jumped in the wrong spot, I missed the grapple, and I forgot to set up the box before I jumped. Anyways, I need a parachute for next time, or maybe even a moth that can just be sacrificed for the egg. And I really like the idea of the moth, so I fast traveled back because I don't want to hop across country again. And I made some trinks and bolas. I found a level 45 close by and managed to snipe the fine gentleman with a bola. But when I started shooting, I got slowed by whatever that gas is, and after unloading my entire clip into him, he broke free and ran away. On day 45, I tried again, and this time it was a level 15. I named him Wyvern Bait. And after feeding some starving camels and tending to my crops, I headed back to the Scar. The stamina is really bad. But as the sun rose over the sand, I arrived and I geared up. I do have a plan, but it's probably not a great one. It began with me setting up a metal 1x1 directly above the nest with the fire egg from earlier. But then this happened. I need that storage box for this to work, so I used Wyvern Bait to gas this thief. And I started punching, hoping to knock the dude out. But then he fell into the shadow realm. Like, really? What is wrong with this game? I did have 1 extra in my base, but that's it. So this was my only shot. Alright, it's Wyvern time. He's so close. So the egg is only level 25, but it's the most accessible one I have right now. So I put it in my pocket, I guess. And Wyvern Bait flapped his wings faster than he ever had before. Wait, did they just not care about their level 25 baby? Yeah, I guess we're clear. But then once I started heading away from my box, oh, bro came out the woodworks and I started panicking. I was so shook that I forgot where the 1x1 was and I got roasted. So I headed back over on Optimus Prime, contemplating life and how I got outplayed by an NPC. There were a ton of wyverns now, and a poison was really close to my body. But luckily, when I grabbed it, the egg was still there. I'm not exactly sure how it works on this game, but I have a fire wyvern egg. It's only level 25 though. And I realized that I actually need wyvern talons to fight Greg. That's gonna make this whole thing a lot more complicated than I originally thought. I need a method not to just steal eggs, but actually kill 6 wyverns. While I pondered on that for a while, I decided to start hatching the fire egg. It was too cold, which was to be expected, but I can't afford a ton of air conditioners either. So I decided to just make use of what I have and not waste too many resources. And I managed to set up a luxury incubation chamber furnished with 3 different styles of heating devices and finished with a parchment map of Scorched Earth. A lot of people actually don't know about this, but you can use angler gel as an alternate fuel source, and it gives this really cool blue flame. So yeah, the egg was incubating, and Lil Bro was preparing for war in there. Anyway, after doing a whole lot of, well, I didn't get much done, to be honest, but the fire egg hatched, and he did have a pretty decent food stat, so I think he actually might survive without milk. But on his 18th birthday, I'm gonna need to feed this man some jerky or something because he's probably gonna be pretty low. So I spent most of the day looking for meat, and I did manage to find a pre-made vault. I was also stacking up Morellatops eggs throughout the day, but not much else happened. On day 49, I continued breeding the camels, and I started hatching some eggs. I only kept the females because berries are extremely limited right now, and even then, the females are probably gonna be starving. And I kept searching for meat. Well, I tried to, but as the day came to an end, one of the eggs hatched a male with a melee mutation. That was amazing, and I've already used most of my berries at this point, but I'm gonna make sure this dude is eating good. But then a pack of wild sociopaths emerged from the desert, and they literally only targeted the babies. Like every single one of my baby females just got deleted. At least the melee mutation male is good, but I wasted so many berries on those other guys. Anyways, I've just been sitting here getting drops, and I might as well do something more productive while waiting on him to grow up. So I headed out to get the artifact of the crag. It took me a lot longer than I'm willing to admit to find this cave entrance. In my defense, it's pretty hard to see. This cave is definitely not as hard as the island caves, but it's for sure the most difficult one on this map. So I spawned in Donald Hump Jr. and encapsulated Optimus Prime. As we progressed through the cave, there wasn't too much, at least not in the beginning. Just like the other 2 caves, it's almost the exact opposite of the island, where everything overspawns on the first attempt. But eventually we made it to the back of the cave, and this is where things got difficult. Right off the bat, there was a Megalosaurus getting his beauty sleep. So I managed to neutralize all the immediate threats. And just for good measure, I ignited this sleeping beauty and then proceeded to slow roast this Megalania. Morellatops are actually kind of cracked. Anyway, after cleaning out the back section, I now had the artifact of the crag. Bro, what does it even mean to be crag? Oh, cool. So I'm a gatekeeper. I'm a destroyer, and apparently I'm also a rock. As I started heading out of the cave, a mantis tried to suplex me from the stands, but we made it out pretty safely, and when I arrived back at my residence, I took inventory of all 3 artifacts, and now all I need is 6 wyvern talons, and a Morellatops army, of course. I started breeding the newly raised male with all of the old 0-0 females, and at this point, the fire wyvern was finally a full-grown man, and he ate all my beef jerky. So I took him out for a test drive. While I was out, I grabbed a drop and I leveled up the stamina a little bit. And while, yes, it is absolutely amazing to be able to just fly around the map like that, but I really need to conserve this guy's food, so I'm not going to use him unless I absolutely need to. Before the end of the day, I also started hatching some more eggs, since now I have about 200 more berries and some potatoes. And that entire egg hatching process carried over to day 53, and then it lasted throughout the entire day. I was only keeping the good females throughout this process. But by day 54, I had used up most of the berries, and I did have 4 females, so I'm just gonna let those grow for now. But I still couldn't leave because I needed to stick around for their staggered imprint timers. So while I was waiting, I kind of went around the area grabbing some drops. But then when I arrived back to my base, I witnessed a saber thug remove the existence of the Morellatops female. It was a good excuse for Mozilla Fire Wyvern to get his first combat kill though. After waiting on the last 2 imprints, one of which wanting prime meat jerky yet claiming to be an herbivore, everything was good at base, so I set out on my Fire Wyvern and I headed over to the Scar. The stam is decent so far, and I leveled the health a little bit, but he's definitely not healed up yet. I'm pretty sure you can take wyverns into this boss fight specifically, so I might actually try that. Anyways, there was swarms of wyvern on one side of the scar, but on the other side, they were distracted. So I headed into the abyss, and there was another level 25 fire egg, and across from that, there was a level 15 poison. I really want something better if I'm going to be risking my fire wyvern's life, but the parents of these two eggs are actually the two wyverns that are out here terrorizing the locals in the desert. I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I might try to see if Mozilla Fire Wyvern can take down that level 15 poison. Okay, so I may have paused my recording and then forgot to unpause it when I got back. So what happened was, a poison wyvern looked at me and he saw that I was out of stam. So I landed, but my stamina would not regen. But then I noticed he was level 15. So I challenged him to a duel. It was kind of hard to hit him. But then all of a sudden he just two-shotted me. Yeah, so Mozilla Fire Wyvern is deceased. Anyways, now Mozilla Fire Wyvern is deceased, and the Morellatops are also starving. So I used pretty much all of my berries to sustain them, and I fast traveled back to my scar base. I'm really not sure what to do about wyverns now, but I guess I should probably get another one because I don't have the resources to build traps. But after making it back to base, I started to get kind of annoyed trying to upkeep the crops because the fertilizer keeps falling through the floor. So I headed out into the desert. I'm pretty sure that dung beetles spawn out here. And then I found a sand castle. Oh! This was my first encounter with the new Facilosuchus. He started doing some 360 no-scopes and I was a bit scared. And then I found a death worm. Help! And then I was very scared. I want to go home. But finally I found a dung beetle, so I named him after nobody specific. And I put him inside my penthouse on Wander because he automatically picks up feces in the area and produces fertilizer. On day 58, I knocked out a new level 15 moth, but then a saber broke my pants and erased the moth I just knocked out. Then my game crashed. Well, that was fun. Anyways, I loaded back up Ark Evolved, and I proceeded to knock out and tame 4 different low-level moths. When I got them all back to base, we got raided by an army of rabid pigs, and there was so much stuff getting knocked around everywhere that I could barely move to stop the invasion. So I decided to reorganize a bit, and I had to demolish some sleeping bags and use all of my hide to make a backup moth saddle. And on day 60, we all headed over to the Wyvern Scar. It took the entire day because of how slow they are. But now I have 4 moths ready to go into death, and I bred 2 backup eggs just in case. I'm not leaving here without a good wyvern egg. By day 60, I was ready to head out, and I very cautiously stuck to the areas without many wyverns. 25, 40, level 15. I don't really want any of those, but there's a ton of wyverns everywhere else, so I might end up having to lower my standards a lot. Throughout the day, I checked the entire right side of the scar. The amount of wyverns over there is absolutely ludicrous, by the way. But the heat stroke was getting so bad that I was getting a headache, like in real life, just looking at my screen, so I had to head back to respawn. On my next attempt, I went to the left side this time, and it was really risky, but I decided to go for this nest. Level 20. Nice. Oh, he sees me! I don't know how, but I managed to outplay that man by using a moth with 300 stamina. Bro needs to retire from being a wyvern after that. But then, a couple minutes later, it finally happened. Oh, level 85. Admittedly, it's not great considering wyverns can go up to level 190, but after like 10 eggs below level 30, this is the best I've seen by far. As I was leaving, one of the wyvern police was immediately in pursuit. Oh, we got a suspect with little arms riding on a moth. But then, I lost him. There's no way it can just be this easy. On Evolved, whenever you just looked in the direction that might contain an egg, the entire regime dedicated their entire life to your downfall. But then, an ant hit my moth and disabled my stamina regen. And moths can't fight back, and I didn't bring my shotgun. So I had to take this dude down with my bare hands. Anyways, I finally made it back with the egg, and there was a poison fella close by, and I didn't want to bother him, so I had to move the moths. And then I respawned real quick to reset my food. But then when I came back, Optimus Prime was underneath the map. I thought they fixed this ever since my first video, but I guess not. And then a giant ant starts terrorizing my moth army, so I migrated the moths since there's no kangaroo to protect them. That's probably the most Australian sentence I've ever said. And when I headed back out into the heat, I found a level 90 poison egg. Poison is definitely the worst of the 3 for PvE, but it's a decent level, so I went for it. This time, the Wyvern Patrol did not let me off so easily though, and my moth was slowly running out of stamina. So I went for a 2000 IQ play, and I landed, put the egg in the moth's inventory, and started running the other way. And the Wyvern fell for it. He started chasing me instead of the moth. What a loser. Oh wait, never mind. See, this is what's supposed to happen when you grab an egg. I'm not really sure why the fire ones were so easy, but I realized that since Optimus Prime is under the map, I have no way of getting that moth saddle back. So I tried to go on foot, kind of scaling the edge of the Wyvern Scar. It was pretty sketchy, to be honest. And 800 meters later, I actually did make it to the moth's bag, but now there is a storm made from sand. I didn't really have a plan, but I grabbed the bag anyways, hoping the Wyverns wouldn't care. Yeah, they cared. A lot. That's what usually happens, which is also why I was confused with how easy it was to get my body back before. Anyways, I managed to cross the bridge and grab my old moth saddle from that first egg like 20 days ago. And on my way back, I proved that we live in a simulation. But eventually, I was able to whistle down a new moth and head back over. My body was still being held captive by this level 55 poison wyvern, and I got a little too close. No! I thought I could lose him in the trees since I didn't take an egg or anything, but dude was the most aggressive wyvern of all time and chased me across 3 solar systems. I deceased. I really wish I had Optimus Prime right now. When the bed finally let me respawn, I ran back on foot because both moth saddles are over there now, and the poison nuisance was still blocking my path. Bro, can you not just go somewhere else? I waited for a bit, but Mans was not gonna move, clearly, so I decided to kite him and put him back where he came from.
Put that thing back where it came from. Oh, so help me, so help me.
On day 66, I had another interaction with my mortal enemy, Mr. Sandstorm, and I realized that you can only track like 5 deaths back, so I really hope I didn't die too many times. But luckily, the furthest death back was the one I tracked, and it actually had the saddle and the poison egg. So I grabbed the egg, and I braced myself to be immediately immolated, electrocuted, and poisoned at the same time, but nobody showed up. So I now have a level 85 fire and a 90 poison egg. But I still have 2 more moths, and I have a saddle on me, so I'm gonna go for another. 10 fire, 50 electric, 55 poison. So there was nothing great in any of the open areas, but the wyverns were swarming the other side of the scar, and I don't really want to die today. So I decided to go for the level 50 lightning since I don't have a lightning egg yet. And yeah, this was the easiest one yet. I didn't even see a single wyvern this time. So since they aren't even over here, I went and grabbed the 10 fire and flew straight across to the 55 poison as well. But then they found me. I'm sorry. And then I realized that was my last moth saddle, and Optimus Prime is still under the floor, so I'm kinda stranded right now with 3 wyvern eggs. It took like an entire day, but eventually I got that last saddle back. And on day 68, I loaded up the eggs to head back to the green obelisk. Oh, that weight could be a problem. So I loaded up 2 of the eggs, and I headed back to the green obelisk. And after dropping it off at base, I took a second trip for the other egg and all of my gear. And now I'm back, and now it's day 70. The pace is actually kind of insane though. I don't think I've ever beat a challenge before day 100, ever. But it could happen if we don't fail the boss fight. Anyways, we had the whole family incubating, decent fire and decent poison, and slightly less than decent lightning. I wish I had one around 150 or higher, but if I use all 3 together, it should be pretty easy to get 6 wyvern talents. I was kind of excited, so I literally didn't even move. I just stared at some eggs. Yo, triplets? It's kind of annoying that it happened with the poison egg, but I'm definitely not complaining. So while I was waiting on these very fine gentlemen to become full-grown menaces, I used every last bit of my fiber and wood to block off all of the spawns around the obelisk. Because now it was time to assemble an army of Morellatops. I want Greg to fear me. A more than significant amount of time has passed, but I now have an army that's all starving and needs to heal about 25k health, but they'll get there. The wyverns are done too, and ironically the level 50 lightning was the only one that I was able to imprint. So I used him to extort some berries from the local carnivores. It's definitely not enough, but they won't die. Also, Lightning McQueen almost went extinct, so I gave him 30 beef jerky. But that's all that I have, and the other wyverns are all less than 1k food too, so I have to be really conservative. Anyways, it was time to face my fears, so I whistled all 5 of my winged beasts, and we headed out to steal some wyvern's fingernails. I kind of took a detour on the way there just to see if I could find an oasasaur. Bro's a walking planet. I don't want to tame him right now, but I'm going to come back after I get the wyvern talons, and I'm going to fulfill my promise to reincarnate Roadrunner. When I arrived, I noticed that all the wyverns are outside the ozone layer. I went for a poison first because that's probably the safest bet to start with. I had to be really careful not to evoke the wrath of the entire organization, but I managed to cut him down to my other wyverns. 5v1 is pretty fair, right? And after being evaporated by a heat wave, I invited another patron to our festival, and that marks 2 out of 6 wyvern talons. But the poisons are the easy ones. The fire and lightnings, they could be a completely different story. I headed out looking for a fire, but I managed to find a 15 lightning instead. And these guys are the most dangerous ones because they have lightning aimbot, which does insane damage regardless of their level. Next up, I found a bonfire with wings. Lightning McQueen got roasted, but we managed to take him down. But apparently Lightning McQueen is allergic to campfires. He got messed up pretty bad. So I decided to use Charizard for now and let Lightning McQueen chill out a bit while he deteriorates. Charizard only has 300 food as well, but I managed to find a lightning wyvern pretty quickly. Ow! And then Mr. Sandstorm decided to stop by, which hijacked all my stamina, and I had to spectate from a safe distance. That was kind of scary, but the poison triplets did some electrical repairs, and now we only need 1 more fire talent. But now Charizard is half health, and his stomach was rumbling, so this might be his last fight. I managed to find a 15 fire in a very crowded public area, and after the poison triplets took him out, I gathered all 6 talons, and I tried to find some meat to save Charizard, but then another sandstorm rolled in, and he's probably gonna die. But I did find an Ascendant treasure map, and I don't think I'm gonna need it, but I'm still gonna dig it up because that is so cool. When I made it back to base, Charizard was already in overtime, so I decided to use the lowest health poison triplet and go for the treasure map. That is actually amazing, but at the same time kind of useless. On day 90, after another sandstorm, I put on all of my best armor and I grabbed Roadrunner's essence. It was time to revive the guy that made this whole challenge possible. So I told my wyvern to land and proceeded to enter the 4th dimension. Hello? But after Charizard paid my bail, I started heading into the desert. It's actually going to be a lot harder using the galley because the taming scales off of your essence's health, and the galley is really lacking in that department. I'm going to do my best though. When I landed on this monstrosity, I noticed that the water gave me a perk called Gaia's Embrace. I'm not really sure what that does, but I'm blue. Okay, so all I know about this is that I'm supposed to put Roadrunner into this water, and then I'm going to get assaulted by rabid vultures. Sounds like a good time. On wave 1, I tested the wyvern, and it's definitely harming the oasisaur and maybe even the essence, so I had to stick to my guns. Literally. After the second wave, it started getting really rough without a good pump shotgun or assault rifle. Yeah, I failed, and Roadrunner is now gone forever. When I made it back to base, I was still pretty sad, but at least I was still blue. I was almost ready to fight Greg, but I remembered that I have a really good Mastercraft Yudi saddle. And Yudis are basically going to increase my survivability by 30%, so I decided to craft a trap and go find one. I searched for the rest of day 91, and then I searched into day 92. And I was still searching, and well, day 93 is almost over. I wanted to find a 130 or higher, and not only did I fail to find a good one, but I didn't find one at all. I'm pretty sure it's either glitched or they removed them from the map on Ascended. I checked this entire spawn region over 5 times, and they're supposed to be here, but something is clearly wrong. Anyways, it's day 94 now, and the Morellatops have healed a little bit, but they're starting to get hungry. I managed to keep them satiated for now since all my crops were full, but I needed to wait a while and probably feed them a bit more so they can heal. Well, that was fast. Thank you, editing. So I got everyone lined up around the obelisk. You're not invited, buddy. And I went to put the tributes into the terminal. Somebody put a bunch of stuff in here. And now it was time to see if we could take down Greg without ever lifting a pickaxe. But it was only day 99, and that's not very epic. So I sat here for approximately 20 minutes. The time has come. I hope you're ready, Greg. As we enter the fight, I was a bit worried because the Morellatops don't have any stimulants. This is a problem because Greg does a lot of torpor damage. I'm not worried about them dying. I'm just worried about them falling asleep. So we started heading down to the middle of the arena, and we were waiting on Greg to quit being a coward and finally land. Something that I wasn't anticipating, however, was that the Morellatops were starting to get stuck on rocks and falling below the map. At this point, we've barely done any damage to Greg, and my Morellatops was already 30% torpor. So now I only have a couple Morellatops left, a few are dead and a few are unconscious, but about half of them fell under the map. On the bright side, all of the death worms are distracted on the ones under the map, so they're not able to kill them and they can't actually come fight me. And I was trying my best to stay away from his poison shots because everything was getting really high on torpor, and the Manticore was starting to get pretty low. But as soon as I got him past the 25% health mark, the rock elementals began to spawn. Let's go. And just like that, Greg is no longer with us, and we beat Scorched Earth Ascended without ever lifting a pickaxe. I previously did this on Ark Evolved on the island, and to be honest, this was way easier. The supply drops on this game are so overpowered that it just kind of makes it a joke, to be honest. But the starting out is still absolutely insane, and I'll probably end up doing this on other maps in the future. So make sure you're subscribed if you want to see that, and let me know in the comments any challenges you guys want to see me do. Give me the hardest ones you can think of. And don't forget to download Raid Shadow Legends using the QR code on screen or the link in the description. And if you want to see me and Granty try to beat the island on a server's hardest difficulty, click right here.